welcome back to the channel. I'm Tanya and this is my needlework and bookish life. Today is Friday, January the 11th, and it is about dusk. Sun is setting and we're gonna do this rather quickly so we don't lose all the light. But I have a cross stitch finish to share with you and then some reading that I've done and have started. So pop in and get comfy. So my cross stitch finish is Eugenie Lazuro 1883. This is a pattern from the Wishing Thorn, and I'll put the finished leaflet here. So I stitched mine on 27 count Danish linen with DMC 518. This was a fantastic stitch. I will do a little video snippet and show you a close-up. This I began the day after Christmas and I finished it 2 nights ago, I think it was. I love it, I love it, I love it. And I'm now on an all one color sampler kick. So I don't know what I'm going to stitch next, but I love this. This was such a fun stitch and it went quick because one color and the simplicity of it. So when I saw you last, I was reading Antarctica by Keegan. This is a collection of short stories. Keegan is an Irish writer and she's amazing. She is just amazing. Her writing is beautiful. So I gave that 5 stars. I kind of changed my book journal idea. Initially, I told you I was going to write what I thought and everything, but I decided instead to print out my Goodread reviews and then just pop them in the journal and then write here and there if I want to. It makes it a little neater and I don't want to lose the reviews I have on Goodreads because I do take time to write those reviews, and I thought, you know, to have them in the journal would be helpful. So Antarctica, I gave 5 stars. That was a collection of 16 stories. And there were some that I loved more than others. The first one, named for the title, was my favorite. And then I went on to read Foster. Now Foster, I stumbled on at the library. This is also by Keegan. Super short. I read this in one evening. And it is, I guess you call this a novella because it's longer than a short story, but it was really good. It is about this girl who goes into foster care, goes to stay with relatives while her mother has her 4th child, I think it is. And they take really good care of her. In the beginning, it's a little unbalanced and you don't know how the dynamic is going to work. And then you learn the background to the couple that have taken her in and what they have been through and the sadness that they lost in their family. And it is just a really beautiful, poignant story, and I really loved it. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. The woman who takes care of the girl, she reminded me of Marilla from Anne of Green Gables. So it's definitely Marilla vibes. She was loving but hold back the emotions and affection, but you could tell she cared deeply. At the end, when the girl goes back to her family, because this is, you know, temporary situation, like foster care, that, you know, she and the girl really bonded. And it's just a really very beautiful, well done story. So Keegan is definitely one of the authors that I really like. I read Everything That Rises Must Converge. Listen to on audio through the Libby app, and this is by Flannery O'Connor. I gave this 3 stars on Goodreads, and I think I've only read one of O'Connor's books before, and that was a novel, and it didn't go well with me. perhaps this being short stories, and I like short stories once again, you know, I was more in the mood and a little more open-minded. I did enjoy this. I gave it 3 stars. It was a solid collection. It was kind of centering mainly around racial relations and faith. The pace of the story, I said in my review, is captivating, and time just ebbs away as the story unwinds. So it had a really great pace to it, and it just felt like you got lost in the story so well that all of a sudden the story was over and you were left with, oh my gosh, okay, we're on to the next one. There were several stories in this collection, and the narrators, there were 2, a woman and a man, and the woman, she was excellent. She had the Southern dialect down very well. The guy was okay, but yet when he did the women's parts, he tried to talk like a woman, and you know, sometimes it just does not work. It doesn't translate very well into an audiobook. But these were written in the 50s and 60s, and it was published after O'Connor's death. She was from Georgia, and I thought that she was from Mississippi because I've been trying to make a list of Mississippi writers and those that I want to concentrate on this year. My grandmother was from Mississippi, and I kind of want to, you know, embrace everything I can from her origin state, shall we say. Some of these stories were very comedic, and some were very sad. Actually, I think they all were sad. But they're very gritty, and they give a real flavor of the era. The first story in this collection, also named for the title, similar to Antarctica, the first one was my favorite in the bunch. And that was about this adult son and his elderly mother, and he had picked her up, but he was taking her to a reduced weight class or something like that. And I really liked her character. Like, I wanted more of the mother. She was real, everything about her. She wasn't going to be rushed, you know, and the son was getting very impatient with her and frustrated with her, and the outcome of the story is super sad, and you feel for him at the end of the story, and up until that point you're frustrated with him because he's rushing her, and you know, you want to tell him, back off, you know, give her a break, be nice to your mother, but he's just kind of on her case. And then at the end, it's not a good outcome, like I said, and it's very sad. And yeah, it's just, and then it's over. So, you know, that's the epitome of a short story. There you go. I started Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. Now this one, I think I had read part of the sample on Amazon when it came out, and for whatever reason, just didn't read anymore. It is still a popular book, and it was written by the woman who wrote Dear Edward. This is literary fiction, I'd say, and it's a retelling of Little Women, somewhat. And I remember hearing about that when the book came out, and so that stuck in my head. So when this came up on my Libby app for borrow at the library, I snatched it up. Now I can't get it out of my head, you know, who's Joe in this story? Who's Lori in this story? So as with retellings, it's kind of tricky to just enjoy the story, let it flow as this author intended, rather than, you know, taking that original plot and imposing it on it. But this is about William, and it opens out with him growing up and his background. And each chapter is a chunk of time. So it gives you at the beginning of the chapter what years it's concentrating on. And he grows up in a household where before him, his sister had passed away very young. And it was just such a very obviously sad situation, and it turned the family into a bitter and despairing household. So he grew up very lonely, and then it moves on to his college days, and he meets this girl, Julie. Is it Julie or Julia? Now I can't remember. I think it's Julia. So she's one of 4 sisters, and here comes the Little Women influence. Is quite smitten with William, and so the two pair up, and then it carries on. You know, he kind of is adopted into her family because his is kind of null and void, and he loves it. You know, he loves being a part of her family. So they're going to get married, and I'm a good chunk into it. It's kind of slow going, but I feel like I should finish this in another day or 2. So I'm reading that. Now this book, I have been wanting to read more Edith Wharton, actually for several years, and I just haven't. My favorite book of hers is Ethan Frome, and I just love the melancholiness of it, the sadness, everything about it, just love it. So I wanted to read some of her books. So I went on my library app, and they had several, obviously, for audio and Kindle, but a lot were already borrowed. And so I went on Amazon, and I hadn't known of this title before, The Mother's Recompense. It's a very hard word to say. And I downloaded the sample, and I read it, and I got so hooked. I mean, I wanted to know what happened next. So I put a hold in the library, and it came in today. It was at another branch. So and it's a great edition. This edition is, so this story was published in 1925 originally, and this edition is from Macmillan, and it's a really nice edition. You know, it's kind of hit or miss for me with classics, because if it has a small font, it's a big turnoff. I just won't even read a book if it has small font. So this is small enough. This is perfect. I'm very picky with my books on how they look and feel in my hand, and how I can see. You know, it's a whole thing. So this is quite doable. But the sample to this was so beautiful. I mean, her writing, Ethan Frome is very short, and it would be probably a novella. It's very descriptive. The atmosphere in Ethan Frome is very stark and cold and wintry, and it's tragic, and that has a lot to do how I think the words get across to the reader. In this one, it's very lush and flowy, and right off the bat. And I wanted to read you the opening, because you'll see what I'm talking about. It says, Kate Clephane was awakened, as usual, by the slain of Riviera sun across her bed. It was the thing she liked best about her shabby, cramped room in this third-rate Hotel de Minoric et de l'Univers, that the morning sun came in at her window, and yet that it didn't come too early. No more sunrises for Kate Clephane. They were associated with too many lost joys, coming home from balls where one had danced oneself to tatters, or from suppers where one had lingered, counting one's winnings. It was wonderful in the old days how often she had won, or friends had won for her, staking a louis just for fun, and cramming her hands with 1,000-franc bills, associated, too, with the scramble uphill through the whitening gray of the garden, flicked by scented shrubs, caught on perfidious prickles, up to the shuttered villa askew on its heat-soaked rock, and then at the door, in the lustrous shade that smelt of honey, that unexpected kiss. Well, honestly, yes, unexpected, since it had long been settled that one was to remain just friends. It and the pulling away from an insistent arm, and the one more pressure on hers of lips young enough to be fresh after a night of drinking and play, and more drinking. Oh, it's just so beautiful. So it just, pulls you in and makes you want to know what this story is about. So from what I had learned in the sample, it was quite captivating. So this Kate, she's in her mid to late 40s, and she has been living on the Riviera, and her mother-in-law dies. And she gets a telegram of this. And then she gets a telegram from her daughter, who's, I think, 19, quite young. And the daughter says, come live with me, come visit me. And she has been estranged from her daughter since the daughter was 3 years old, because apparently when the husband died, the mother-in-law said, you will not have any access to the child, and was the guardian of the daughter. So it's going to be her going back and being with the daughter and seeing how that relationship will pan out. And the daughter, I believe, is going to get married, and I think she's going to marry this guy who was the mother's beau several years ago, who I think 10 years ago, and left her. So that's in a nutshell in the sample. Doesn't that sound good? So that is next up to read. So that's just a snippet of what I have been reading. Let me know what you are stitching and or reading this weekend, and I will see you soon.